The children of Israel, under the instructions of the commander of the army of the Lord, successfully defeated Jericho, setting up a safe area around Gilgal from which they could conduct their campaign to take the rest of the promised land. It seems that they are well placed to begin the conquest of the land. The next step is to go up from the Jordan Valley, an ascent of around 3,000 feet, to take the small city of Ai. However, trouble comes to Israel from an unexpected source. I'm Brenda Cathcart, and this is the Promise of Rest. When Israel took the city of Jericho, God instructed that the entire city be devoted to him. Everything in the city was to be burned, and all the people and livestock were to be killed. The fine metals and precious stones were to be consecrated to the Lord and put into the treasury of the Lord. The Hebrew word associated with this instruction is kerem, number 2764 in Strong's Concordance, meaning shutting in as in a net. In regard to an object being harem to the Lord, it is either a doomed object which is to be destroyed by fire, or a dedicated object which can only be used by the priest in service to the Lord. As a doomed object, kerem is translated as cursed or accursed in English. As a dedicated object, kerem is usually translated as devoted. Jericho was accursed, and its fine metals and jewels were devoted. Joshua told the people that if they failed in destroying all the accursed objects and turning over the devoted objects to the Lord, the entire camp of Israel would become kerem or accursed. Joshua 6:18. And you, by all means, abstain from the accursed things, lest you become accursed when you take of the accursed things, and make the camp of Israel a curse and trouble it. Unbeknownst to Joshua, this is exactly what happened. Joshua 7:1. But the children of Israel committed a trespass regarding the accursed things. For Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerach, of the tribe of Judah, took of the accursed things, so the anger of the Lord burned against the children of Israel. The events that happen next are all connected to the actions of Achan. This in turn connects the events associated with the defeat at Ai with the crossing of the Jordan River, the remembrance of that event at Gilgal, and the destruction of Jericho. The names of Gilgal and Ai are related to the events that happened there. Each city name is unique in that it is prefaced by the definite article the. The city names are actually the Gilgal and the Ai. The Gilgal means the wheel, named because God rolled away the reproach of Egypt at the Gilgal. The name Ai, from number 5856, means the ruin or the heap. The Ai almost became the ruin of Israel. The crossing of the Jordan River was memorialized by setting up 12 stones at Gilgal. As we continue through the account of Ai, we will find that the events that led to the defeat at Ai will be marked by a rock memorial. Achan, our central character, contrasts with Rahab, one of the central characters of the Jericho account. Rahab was a prostitute, which placed her in the lowest possible social position. In contrast, Achan's lineage is of the highest. He was from the tribe of Judah, the tribe that led all the others in the wilderness. He was the quintessential Israel of impeccable lineage. Achan's name, number 5912, means to trouble. This is just what Achan brought to Israel. Joshua, thinking that everything was going well, did not anticipate any problems as he made plans to take the city of Ai. He started out like he did before taking Jericho, by sending out men to spy the land around the city of Ai. Joshua 7:2. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is beside Bet-aven, on the east side of Bethel, and spoke to them, saying, "Go up and spy out the country." So the men went up and spied out Ai. The meanings of the names of the cities near the Ai are interesting. We are already familiar with Bethel. This is where Jacob set up and anointed the stone because of the vision that he saw there. Bethel, number 1008, means house of God. In contrast, Bet Aven, number 1007, means house of vanity or iniquity. Aven, number 205, means to pant after something in vain, trouble, vanity, wickedness, or iniquity. The house of God is near the house of iniquity, and near both is the ruin. The men that Joshua sent out, bursting with confidence from the easy conquest of Jericho, determined that only a small force would be needed to take Ai. They reasoned that there was no need for a big force to ascend all the way out of the Jordan Valley to the hill country of Ai. Joshua 7:3. And they returned to Joshua and said to him, "Do not let all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack Ai. Do not weary all the people there, for the people of Ai are few." Previously, when Joshua was planning the conquest of Jericho, the commander of the army of the Lord appeared to Joshua and instructed him on how to take the city. However, in planning for the conquest of Ai, it seems that Joshua forgot to consult with the Lord. Instead, Joshua only listened to the spies, followed their recommendation, and sent out just 3,000 men. Joshua 7:4-5. So about 3,000 men went up there from the people, but they fled before the men of Ai, and the men of Ai struck down about 36 men, for they chased them from before the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them down on the descent. Therefore the hearts of the people melted and became like water. The men of Ai quickly struck down 36 men. The Israelites, expecting a rout, were taken by surprise. Shocked by the death of their comrades, they turned and ran with the men of Ai in pursuit. The contrast between events at Gilgal and Jericho with the events at Ai are emphasized by the statement that the hearts of the people melted and became like water. Earlier, after the crossing of the Jordan River on dry ground, and as Israel prepared to take Jericho, the hearts of the Canaanites were melted. Joshua 5:1. So it was when all the kings of the Amorites who were on the west side of the Jordan, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan from before the children of Israel until we had crossed over, that their heart melted, and there was no spirit in them any longer because of the children of Israel. When the defeated men whose hearts were now melted reported back to Joshua, Joshua belatedly turned to God. But instead of seeking God's instructions, he blamed God. Joshua 7:6-9. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until evening, he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said, "Alas, Lord God, why have you brought this people over the Jordan at all, to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites, to destroy us? Oh, that we had been content and dwelt on the other side of the Jordan. O Lord, what shall I say when Israel turns its back before its enemies? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear it and surround us and cut off our name from the earth. Then what will you do for your great name?" Joshua's immediate reaction was that God had brought them across the Jordan to allow them to be killed in the land. This response is sadly very much like the response of the children of Israel 39 years earlier when they were afraid to go into the land. Numbers 14:3. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? At that time, Joshua was not one of the ones who were discouraged and ready to go back to Egypt. Joshua was confident that God had given them the land and would fight for them. Now, with this defeat at Ai, Joshua is so discouraged, he's ready to retreat across the Jordan and be content with the lands they had taken there. Despite his discouragement, Joshua was still concerned with God's reputation. What would their defeat do to God's reputation among the Canaanites? God responds with an explanation of Israel's sin. Joshua 7:10-12. So the Lord said to Joshua, "Get up. Why do you lie thus on your face? Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant which I commanded them. For they have even taken some of the accursed things, and have both stolen and deceived, and they have also put it among their own stuff. Therefore the children of Israel could not stand before their enemies, but turned their backs before their enemies, because they have become doomed to destruction. Neither will I be with you any more, unless you destroy the accursed from among you. The first verse of this chapter tells us that Achan is the one who took the objects. Although this fact is not yet known to Joshua, we can ask why the whole camp of Israel is held responsible for Achan's sin. There are a couple of principles involved here. The first is the nature of Israel's sin. The word sinned is the Hebrew word kata, number 2398, meaning to miss. Israel unknowingly missed in fulfilling their community obligation to God to burn all of the contents of Jericho and deliver those that could not be burned into the hands of the priests. The second principle is that of contagion. In certain situations, a common object that is not unclean can become holy when it comes into contact with a holy object. Similarly, a holy object which comes into contact with an unclean object can become unclean. In a similar sense, Achan, through taking what was karem to God, became karem. Israel, as it came into contact with Achan, also became karem, doomed to destruction. As a result of Achan's possession of the karem items and the contagion associated with them, God would no longer go with them. The only way to remedy the situation was to destroy the karem property along with the one who took the property. God instructs Joshua to have the children of Israel sanctify themselves in preparation for the revelation of who among them had sinned by taking items that belonged to God. The one found with the accursed items was to be treated as accursed. The offender was to be burned just like Jericho and everything in Jericho. Joshua 7:15. Then it shall be that he who is taken with the accursed thing shall be burned with fire, he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has done a disgraceful thing in Israel. The word taken is the Hebrew word lakad, number 3920, meaning to catch as in a net, to capture or choose. This is the same word used in reference to the city of Jericho being taken in Joshua 6:20. Remember that the literal definition of harem is to shut in a net. Both Jericho and the guilty party were captured in the net and devoted to God. Through a process of casting lots, Achan is revealed to be the one who stole the devoted objects from God and hid them in his net. Joshua addresses Achan kindly and asks Achan to confess. Achan admits to taking the items from Jericho. He saw them, he coveted them, and he took them. Joshua 7:20-21. And Achan answered Joshua and said, Indeed, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and this is what I have done. When I saw among the spoils a beautiful Babylonian garment, 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. And there they are, hidden in the earth in the midst of my tent, with the silver under it. Joshua has Achan, his sons and daughters, his livestock, and all his belongings taken out to a valley somewhere near Jericho and Gilgal. The exact location is not known today. Joshua 7:24. Then Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan the son of Zerach, the silver, the garment, the wedge of gold, his sons, his daughters, his oxen, his donkeys, his sheep, his tent, and all that he had, and they brought them to the valley of Achor. The name Achor, number 5911, means troubled. The valley was named after this event. Joshua's next words, in essence, name the valley. Joshua 7:25. And Joshua said, Why have you troubled us? The Lord will trouble you this day. So all Israel stoned him with stones, and they burned them with fire after they had stoned them with stones. Why wasn't Achan forgiven when he confessed his sin? God takes his holiness seriously. Aaron's sons Nadab and Abihu were consumed in the fire of God when they violated God's holiness. Achan took that which was specifically set aside for God and thus was killed. In the New Testament, 2 followers of Yeshua, Ananias and Sapphira, vowed to give all the proceeds of a field they sold to the Lord. When Peter confronted them after they secretly held back a portion, God struck them down. Acts 5:3-5. But Peter said, Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit and keep back part of the price of the land for yourself? While it remained, was it not your own? And after it was sold, was it not in your own control? Why have you conceived this thing in your heart? You have not lied to men, but to God. Then Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and breathed his last. So great fear came upon all those who heard these things. Although Achan's physical life was taken, the Jewish sages state that he has forgiveness in the world to come. This is inferred when Joshua states that the Lord will trouble you in this day, implying that Achan would not be troubled in the world to come. The second question is why Achan's sons and daughters were stoned with him. In verse 15, only Achan is mentioned. Then in verse 25, there is a mixture of singular and plural verbs. Israel stoned him, singular. Then Israel burned them, plural, and stoned them, plural. The Art Scroll series book Joshua Judges cites Rashi's understanding of this discrepancy. The singular, pelted him, refers to Achan. The plural verbs refer to his property and livestock. The sages Ralbag and Radak believed that only Achan was stoned. Although his family was also taken to the valley of Achor, they were not punished for their father's sin. They were taken for the same reason as the rest of the nation, to witness Achan's punishment as a deterrent against such conduct in the future. If Achan's family was stoned and then burned with him because of his sin, it is a type of measure for measure, contrasting with all of Rahab's family being saved because of her act of righteousness. Rahab, the prostitute, became an Israelite, marrying Salmon of the tribe of Judah. Achan, the Israelite of the tribe of Judah, was a Canaanite in disguise. We see this in a Hebrew wordplay. The Hebrew spelling of Achan and the root word of Canaanite use the same Hebrew letters. The name Achan is spelled Ayin Kuf Nun. The root word for Canaanite is Kana, number 3665, spelled Kuf Nun Ayin. Achan was first stoned and then burned, just like Jericho with its inhabitants and contents. After the burning, the children of Israel raised a great heap of stones over the site. Joshua 7:26. Then they raised over him a great heap of stones, still there to this day. So the Lord turned from the fierceness of his anger. Therefore the name of that place has been called the Valley of Achor to this day. At Gilgal, the children of Israel erected 12 stones as a monument to God, bringing them across the Jordan River on dry ground. They were to know the hand of the Lord and fear the Lord their God forever. At the Valley of Achor, a heap of stones was set up as a reminder of the consequences of forgetting the hand of the Lord and failing to fear the Lord their God. The prophet Hosea refers to the Valley of Achor becoming a door of hope for Israel when God once more brings them from the wilderness into the land. Hosea 2:14 and 15. Therefore, behold, I will allure her, will bring her into the wilderness, and speak comfort to her. I will give her her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as a door of hope. She shall sing there as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up from the land of Egypt. There is a Hebrew word play in this passage with the word translated as vineyards. The Hebrew word is kerem, number 3754, meaning a garden or vineyard. Kerem is only one letter different from karem and sounds very much the same. The valley of Achor, or trouble, resulted from Achan taking the things karem to God. When God brings Israel back into the land, he will give them vineyards, Kerem. After the stoning of Achan, God said that he would once more go with Israel to take the land. God instructed Joshua not to be overconfident, but to take all the men of war and go up to Ai. Joshua 8:1-2. Now the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. Take all the people of war with you, and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only its spoil and its cattle you shall take as booty for yourselves. Lay an ambush for the city behind it." The Bible doesn't record all the instructions that God gave Joshua for taking Ai. However, when Joshua laid out the plan of attack, he describes it as coming from the Lord. This plan is not Joshua's plan like their first attack on Ai. It is the Lord's plan. Finally, the children of Israel were allowed to take the spoils of Ai for themselves. Jericho, the first city taken in the conquest of the land, was the only city devoted to God. Through the taking of the two cities of Jericho and Ai, God revealed the importance of respecting and honoring his holiness and his mighty power. By faith, Rahab's entire family was saved from destruction. By obedience, the walls of Jericho came down. However, because of lack of reverence for God and through disobedience, the Israelites were defeated at Ai, and Achan's entire family was destroyed. I'm Brenda Cathcart for Moed Ministries International. Shalom and be blessed.